Welcome to our comprehensive exploration of Paul's commands in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, viewed through a Torah-centric lens. We'll delve deep into the apostles' instructions, uncovering their roots in the Hebrew scriptures and drawing connections to other teachings throughout the Bible. Paul begins with a call for proper perspective. In 1 Corinthians 4:1 he states, "This is how one should regard us, as servants of Messiah and stewards of the mysteries of Elohim." This echoes the role of the Levites in the Torah, who were entrusted with the service of the tabernacle. In Numbers 3 verse 7-8 we read, "They shall perform duties for him and for the whole congregation before the tent of meeting, as they minister at the tabernacle. They shall guard all the furnishings of the tent of meeting, and keep charge of the people of Israel as they minister at the tabernacle." This concept of believers as servants and stewards is not unique to Paul. In fact, it's a theme that runs throughout the scriptures. In Exodus 19:6, Yahuwah declares to Israel, "And you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation." This idea is echoed in Isaiah 61:6, which prophesies, "But you shall be called the priests of Yahuwah. They shall speak of you as the ministers of our Elohim." The apostle Peter further develops this concept in 1 Peter 2:5, saying, "You yourselves, like living stones, are being built up as a spiritual house, to be a holy priesthood, to offer spiritual sacrifices acceptable to Elohim through Yeshua the Messiah." This beautifully ties together the Old and New Testament teachings, showing how believers in Yeshua are called to a priestly role, just as the Levites were in the Torah. Paul then emphasizes the importance of faithfulness in 1 Corinthians 4:2. Moreover, it is required of stewards that they be found faithful. This concept of faithfulness in service is deeply rooted in the Torah and the prophets. We see this in Deuteronomy 7:9, which declares, "Know therefore that Yahuwah your Elohim is Elohim, the faithful El, who keeps covenant and steadfast love with those who love him and keep his commandments, to 1,000 generations." The importance of faithfulness is further emphasized in Proverbs 3:3-4. "Let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck, write them on the tablet of your heart, so you will find favor and good success in the sight of Elohim and man." Similarly, the prophet Jeremiah speaks of the value Yahuwah places on faithfulness in Jeremiah 5:1. "Run to and fro through the streets of Jerusalem. Look and take note. Search her squares to see if you can find a man, one who does justice and seeks truth, that I may pardon her." This concept of faithfulness is closely tied to the idea of good works, as expressed by Yaakov, James 18. "But someone will say, 'You have faith and I have works. Show me your faith apart from your works, and I will show you my faith by my works.'" This verse beautifully illustrates how faithfulness is demonstrated through action, echoing the Torah's emphasis on both belief and obedience. Moving on, Paul warns against premature judgment in 1 Corinthians 4 verse 5. "Therefore do not pronounce judgment before the time, before the Master comes, who will bring to light the things now hidden in darkness and will disclose the purposes of the heart. Then each one will receive his commendation from Elohim." This aligns with the Torah's caution against hasty judgment, as seen in Leviticus 19:15. "You shall do no injustice in court. You shall not be partial to the poor or defer to the great, but in righteousness shall you judge your neighbor." This principle is reinforced in multiple passages throughout the Tanakh. In Deuteronomy 1:16-17, Moses instructs the judges of Israel, "And I charged your judges at that time, hear the cases between your brothers, and judge righteously between a man and his brother or the alien who is with him. You shall not be partial in judgment. You shall hear the small and the great alike. You shall not be intimidated by anyone, for the judgment is Elohim's." Similarly, in Proverbs 18:13 we read, "If one gives an answer before he hears, it is his folly and shame." Interestingly, this concept of careful and compassionate judgment is further elaborated in the book of Netzarim. In a passage that resonates deeply with Paul's teaching, we find, one of the disciples asked, "How shall we judge what people do, whether it be good or whether it be bad?" Yeshua said, "If you are unsure whether a person's actions be good or bad, incline in his favor. If anything may be interpreted favorably or otherwise, then interpret favorably." Do not seek for wrongdoing, like dogs chasing a foul smell. If a good man does something appearing to be bad, then withhold judgment, wondering whether there be some good motive behind it. Yet do not be easily hoodwinked. If one with a bad reputation does something seemingly good, question his motives, but bear in mind that no man is either wholly good or wholly evil. This teaching of Yeshua adds depth to Paul's instruction, emphasizing the importance of giving others the benefit of the doubt while still maintaining discernment. It encourages us to approach judgment with wisdom, compassion, and a recognition of the complexity of human nature. Paul then instructs the Corinthians to learn from his example in 1 Corinthians 4 verse 16. I urge you then, be imitators of me. This concept of imitating righteous examples is found throughout the Torah and prophets. In Deuteronomy 5:1, Moses tells the Israelites, Hear, O Israel, the statutes and the rules that I speak in your hearing today, and you shall learn them and be careful to do them. The prophet Jeremiah exhorts in Jeremiah 6:16, Thus says Yahuwah, Stand by the roads and look and ask for the ancient paths where the good way is, and walk in it and find rest for your souls. This idea is also reflected in Psalm 119:15-16. I will meditate on your precepts and fix my eyes on your ways. I will delight in your statutes. I will not forget your word. In 1 Corinthians 4:6, Paul adds another important instruction. I have applied all these things to myself and Apollos for your benefit, brothers, that you may learn by us not to go beyond what is written, that none of you may be puffed up in favor of one against another. This command to not go beyond what is written echoes the warning in Deuteronomy 4:2. You shall not add to the word that I command you, nor take from it, that you may keep the commandments of Yahuwah your Elohim that I command you. Paul's admonition against pride in 1 Corinthians 4 verse 7 is deeply rooted in the wisdom literature of the Tanakh. He asks, For who sees anything different in you? What do you have that you did not receive? If then you received it, why do you boast as if you did not receive it? This sentiment is reminiscent of Jeremiah 9:23-24. Thus says Yahuwah, Let not the wise man boast in his wisdom, let not the mighty man boast in his might, let not the rich man boast in his riches, but let him who boasts boast in this, that he understands and knows me, that I am Yahuwah, who practices steadfast love, justice, and righteousness in the earth. For in these things I delight, declares Yahuwah. In 1 Corinthians 4:11-13, Paul describes the hardships he and his fellow apostles endure. To the present hour we hunger and thirst, we are poorly dressed and buffeted and homeless, and we labor, working with our own hands. When reviled we bless, when persecuted we endure, when slandered we entreat. We have become, and are still, like the scum of the world, the refuse of all things. This willingness to endure hardship for the sake of Yahuwah's calling echoes the experiences of many prophets in the Tanakh, such as Jeremiah, who faced persecution and rejection for delivering Yahuwah's message, Jeremiah 20:7-18. Finally, Paul issues a stern warning in 1 Corinthians 4:21. What do you wish? Shall I come to you with a rod, or with love in a spirit of gentleness? This dual approach of discipline and gentleness is reminiscent of Yahuwah's dealings with Israel throughout the Torah. We see this balance in Deuteronomy 8:5. Know then in your heart that, as a man disciplines his son, Yahuwah your Elohim disciplines you. This concept of loving discipline is further developed in Proverbs 3:11-12. My son, do not despise Yahuwah's discipline or be weary of his reproof, for Yahuwah reproves him whom he loves, as a father the son in whom he delights. We also see this in Psalm 94:12. Blessed is the man whom you discipline, O Yah, and whom you teach out of your law. Throughout this chapter, we see Paul drawing deeply from his Torah background and the teachings of the prophets. His commands reflect the principles of faithful service, righteous judgment, following godly examples, humility, endurance in hardship, and balanced discipline that are woven throughout the Hebrew Scriptures. By understanding these connections, we gain a richer appreciation for the continuity between the Tanakh and the New Testament and the enduring relevance of Yahuwah's teachings. This exploration demonstrates how Paul's instructions to the Corinthians were not new inventions, but rather applications of timeless truths found in the Torah and prophets. As we study these connections, we can better understand how to live as faithful servants and stewards of Yahuwah's mysteries in our own lives, always striving to demonstrate our faith through our actions and to walk in the ancient paths of righteousness. Until next time, Shalom.